Closer Look is a public affairs presentation. Opinions expressed by some of our guests may not reflect the views of K-Love, and some topics aren't suitable for children. K-Love is committed to community. Closer Look continues now with a look at local agencies, events, and issues.
Welcome to another edition of Closer Look. I'm Ron Turner. In this edition, we'll be giving some positive solutions to those who suffer from a mental disability or a mental health issue, discussing the various programs that they should look for to receive support and care. My guest is Saya Krebs-Brandfass. She's Director of Peer Support Services for Milestone Centers. Saya, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and I'm honored that you're having me.
Can you help us understand the differences between mental disabilities and mental illness, if there are any?
So the term really is mental illness. Mental disabilities, I can't remember how long ago that we've kind of not been using that. So it's really just mental illness.
Okay. So really the phrasing has changed to mental illness. So it's pretty much the same when you're discussing it.
Correct.
Okay. Mental health has been in the forefront and center for a lot of us these days. Not only are we hearing about it in the daily local news, but we may have a family member who suffers its effects as well as our own experiences with it. Why does it seem to be more prevalent today than, say, 25 years ago?
I think we all could say we live in this day and age of immediacy, the news, social media. It's there for us at the ready, right? So while we may not catch our local news or the newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, we can bring it up on our phones, on our computers. Everyone's lives, from what we do and eat to what we wear, becomes, quote, news. And for those of us that support people who are living with a mental illness, that's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. It's good because it helps to, quote, normalize, although normal's really just a setting on my washer and dryer, but it helps with the stigma of those living with mental illness. It helps to lessen that. We're talking about it more, right? Mm-hmm. But the other edge of that is people fear what they don't know. And when we talk about perhaps cancer or high blood pressure, people know about those kind of things because they've been talked about, but we can't necessarily see what's in our brains. So people fear, unless they're familiar with it, what they don't know. And so people that are living with a mental illness can be sensationalized. Oh, well, there's a mass shooting and the person that did this is suffering from a mental illness. We don't really hear a lot, unfortunately, in the news about Saya, who happens to be living with a mental illness, works full-time or volunteers or help to save somebody who is choking at a restaurant, right?
Right.
We don't hear that kind of thing.
Well, that's very interesting because when you think mental health issues, some of this is onset through heavy stress or something like that could come down and suddenly there's this issue. I mean, everything would be hunky-dory and suddenly something has occurred that causes this mental illness. And then there's folks who are born with it. You say it really doesn't rear its head until maybe later on in life. People are starting to talk about it more and open up to it more. Is there a specific age where we're seeing this kind of come to the surface?
Yes, there is. Statistically speaking, about 50% of people with mental illness, mental health challenges begins by the age of 14, and 3/4 of that certainly by the age of 24. That doesn't account for, as you mentioned, some of the other stressors. Certainly, if we talk about huge stressors recently, the pandemic always comes to mind. That's kind of a difference in somebody that may have anxiety that they did not have previously. We have found that more and more people have sought treatment during the pandemic than they did before. At any age, mental health issues don't discriminate, race, creed, age, that sort of thing.
For somebody not born with a mental illness and those who may acquire one through life, I mean, would you point at this is what's going on socially for us? I mean, the world has changed drastically, the amount of information we're getting. Is that something that's contributing to a lot of the new onset mental illness?
Personally, yes, I believe so. And what I see in the work that I have done for the last 35 years in various capacities as somebody who supports those living with mental illness, I have noticed that that's been the case.
You mentioned 35 years being in this field. What are some of the differences in methods today, as opposed to, say, 25, 35 years ago, of treating those with a mental illness?
So back in the day, 25, 30 years ago, even before then, really up until I want to say the last 20 years or so, it was very what we called the medical model, where your psychiatrist, your therapist, the person sitting across from the proverbial couch from you, knew what was best and told you that this is what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing. As opposed to now, and there's something called the behavioral health recovery movement, where you are the person living with a mental illness is really at front and center and at the driver's seat. So you are an active participant in your care. And so you have people collaborating with you, listening to you. Usually a couple people that are experts in the room, and certainly those people that you see. It could be a therapist, it could be a social worker. They certainly have that book knowledge, right? But the other person that's the expert in the room is the person themselves, right?
Yeah.
They know that, I have tried this modality. It really didn't work in the past, or I would like to try this. So I always like to say there's two experts in the room, and that's not uncommon. You'll hear a lot of people in the recovery movement speak about the two experts in the room. So there's more collaboration, there's more buy-in on both sides from the old medical model.
Not just somebody's idea and, boy, you're so far beyond we have to put you away kind of thing, which is the scary, a lot of people think of that from 25, 35 years ago. There are treatments, and we've progressed so far for mental health.
Absolutely.
And do you have any statistics for our state as a whole in terms of the number of people experiencing a mental illness?
I do. So in the state of Pennsylvania, there's about 34% of adults living with a mental illness. So a little bit similar to what it is across the country.
Interesting. Well, I want to talk about some of the programs that you make available at Milestone Centers in a moment. But first, I want to remind those who may be just tuning in. You're listening to Closer Look. I'm Ron Turner. My guest is Saya Krebs-Brandfass. She's Director of Peer Support Services for Milestone Centers. And we're talking about some solutions for you or a loved one who may be experiencing a mental health issue. Now, if you want more information about the different programs available, you can go to milestonepa.org. Again, that's all one word, milestonepa.org. Saya, in your experience, what have you found to be the best approach to support someone with mental illness?
I think a collaborative approach. And when I say that, I mean, we talked a bit about that old medical model and moving into a more person-centered, person-driven model of recovery, but a collaboration of both what we would consider clinical services. And for those people listening, a clinical service, for example, could be outpatient therapy, along with community-based services. And community-based services would be like peer support, service coordination, case management, some behavioral health residential services, some social rehab. Those are services that are out in the community so that you're able to integrate both of those modalities.
Okay. All right. You have some programs there at Milestone Centers. What is the Chain of Hope program? Who is it for and how does it work?
The Chain of Hope happens to be one of the oldest drop-in centers, not only in Allegheny County, but in Pennsylvania in general. And it is just that. It's a drop-in center which serves all persons within our behavioral health realm, those folks in Allegheny County who desire the opportunity to kind of engage in some fellowship with other peers. And really the goal for the Chain of Hope is to help those individuals that are members to reestablish links within the community through informal activities and some more structured programs. For example, we provide socialization, that recreation. It could be going out to movies, board games, bingo night, pool table. Coffee is always served. Some wellness initiatives, because we all know that we're not just people living with a mental illness, so our brain isn't over here and our kidneys aren't over in the corner, a more holistic approach. We have a food bank where we serve over 100 people every Thursday, and then we have volunteer opportunities, holiday things, so on and so forth.
Oh, it sounds like a fun program. And what have you found in your experience has been some really good successes coming out of that program?
Just people that may be isolating because they're suffering from depression. So I'm going to isolate. I'm not going to go out. And being able to know they can get up and they're not going to be judged. It's a safe place. Have a cup of coffee. And connecting with others, building those social and natural supports are success stories in and of itself right there. Meeting other people, having those volunteer opportunities within our community, not only within the Chain of Hope, which, as you said, resides in one part of the state, but there are drop-in centers throughout the state, throughout the country, but certainly throughout the state of Pennsylvania, where people can go and connect and give back, which we know builds sense of self-worth and purpose and meaning for folks.
Right. Bringing out the self-esteem in somebody, as you mentioned, them just for fear to go out because you're just afraid people will be poking fun at you. Something like that. It's not, that's not a good way to live.
No.
And being able to socialize and just be with folks around you and love. Is there an age limit? I mean, what are the ages for this program?
So for our particular drop-in center, between 14 on up, and we do run the gamut.
All right. Everybody's matched with their age group, I mean, in terms of activities and stuff that they want to do, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
There is another program that you're well known for. It's your peer support services that you're actually director of. Tell us about that, and who does it primarily serve?
The peer support program, in the last couple of years, we've actually merged the Chain of Hope, which is peers, right? Because peers are there getting services, all of that. But the Certified Peer Support Program provides a unique treatment experience. We specialize in those therapeutic interventions as opposed to therapy that you may get in a clinical service. And they provide folks. My staff are all self-identified, so we are people who are also living with mental illness and or substance use, those current and former recipients of behavioral health services. So the peer support specialists, we are certified and trained to offer support and assistance in helping others and along that recovery journey throughout that continuum of care and certainly that integration within the community. Our services are kind of provided to individuals who are between 18, 20 years old and have been diagnosed with a severe and persistent mental illness. Some of our programs include sharing those experiences, strength and hope, that shared kind of common ground. We work with people kind of on self-determination, understanding, resiliency, any goals that they may have. Again, very recovery oriented. What are you interested in doing?
Right, kind of goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these programs are mostly outpatient programs. How is inpatient different? Do you guys do that? Is that
so? Milestone does not offer an inpatient program.
Okay.
Right. I mean, we do have some hospitals that certainly do have behavioral health inpatient units, and we get a lot of referrals from them into our services. So the difference is just that. It is an intensive inpatient where you go into a facility and get treatment, and then you're discharged and can come to Milestone or any behavioral health agency within your community to get services.
In some of those cases, it's more of just kind of a launching pad to get you out of a situation and stabilized, and then into a social situation as what you have to offer.
Right, and because we know that many illnesses, mental illness included, that process isn't always linear, right? You're going along, and so we have folks within our programs that are doing quite well, and then there may be a hiccup, a pothole in the road, and so going back to inpatient may be the best at that time, and then, again, it's almost like a booster shot, right? You go in, you get what you need, and then you're able to come back into the community.
Exactly. You're listening to Closer Look. I'm Ron Turner. My guest is Saya Krebs-Brandfass. She's Director of Peer Support Services for Milestone Centers. We're talking about some solutions for you or a loved one who may be experiencing a mental health issue. If you want to know more about the different programs available, you can go to milestonepa.org, milestonepa.org. Now, for those not able to get to your centers at Milestone, Saya, what do you suggest they look for in comparable services to get the quality care that they need?
I always tell people that your insurance card is really a good friend, especially an underutilized part. If you flip it over, you can give them a call and say, hey, I am experiencing anxiety, depression, and they will give you providers, both private, but those agencies such as Milestone Centers that can help support you. And then anybody in your county, I encourage them to go to most counties, all counties actually, have a Department of Human Services. So if you do a quick Google search, you can do that. And then dhs.pa.gov. That's a great website, and it will also provide some links to support within your community. Pennsylvania has a support and referral helpline, a crisis text line, and there's also a veterans crisis text line. So I'm sure a good Google search will bring up those resources and numbers for you.
Okay, kind of get you some really local stuff and pretty much offer a lot of the programs that you're talking about. And in terms of the actual care itself, I know going into my personal doctor, going in and the people who direct the different programs and stuff, you have to have some chemistry there to be able to like the person. You're looking for that as well, correct?
Yes.
Chemistry?
Yes, absolutely. And I do tell people just in my own programs here, because I know that has helped me and those, that are dear to me that also are living with mental illness, that, again, is very person-centered. So if you meet with whether it's a therapist, a service coordinator, if you're meeting with a peer support and you're finding that you're not meshing, it's not going to be really helpful because you probably won't share as much. You won't feel as comfortable as you mentioned. And it is absolutely okay to advocate for yourself. and people call me, I don't think my peer is really working for me. And then we talk, we have that conversation. What are you looking for? And we can certainly reassign. I don't know that there's an agency or a program out there that will not do that. And if there's something at Milestone that, for example, we don't have, we do refer elsewhere. For example, perhaps you're looking for some help and support for veteran services. So there are other agencies that are kind of experts in that realm that we refer to. So.
Now, can you tell us about the Milestone HCQU program? It's available for Warren County. How long has that program been in operation, and what are some of the success stories you have from that?
Our HCQ is in the Northwest and in the West. It's really an integral part of a long-term initiative within Pennsylvania, within our Department of Public Welfare, and ODP, which is our Office of Developmental Programs, to support and improve the physical and behavioral health care services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I can give you a couple really good success stories in the peer world.
Well, let's go back to that then. Obviously, you're the director of the Peer Support Services. What success stories can you share from that?
Three come to mind. We have a gentleman who has got some mental health challenges, is living with mental illness, but he also has substance use. In fact, he was using about 40 years. And that's a long time. That's a long time. And, it was kind of, well, what came first? Were you using? And then you started having mental health issues, only to come to find that he was really using that as his medication of choice to mask some of the symptoms of mental, right. So he was able, with the help of his peer support specialist, to get involved with an intensive substance use program, and then he came back to us. He now has almost 3 years clean. He is learning to read. He's learning to write. He was homeless at the time, and now he's also got his own apartment, and he volunteers for us. So that's
excellent.
That's one success story. We certainly have many. We have a gentleman that was he's an incredible musician. His name is AJ, and he kind of came to Milestone because he was trying to make himself a better person and working through his emotions and self-control. And he said, really, all I wanted to do was be a beacon of light for other folks. So he is a songwriter, and he writes and produces inspirational kind of rap hip-hop songs, which help him express how he feels. And then that's an inspiration to others.
That is awesome. Now, you said you've been in this line of work for 35 years now. What is your favorite part of doing this work?
My favorite part is connecting and collaborating with those people that we support. It's near and dear to me for many reasons, but not the least of which is I am also, if you've not gleaned that from some of my comments, I am also a person who has mental illness. Okay, I'm an overachiever. I've got several. So I do know what it is like. I certainly have some of the training and the book knowledge of it. I've been doing this for a while, as you mentioned, 35 years. And when I was first diagnosed, my doctor said, was that old medical model, you'll never work again. Maybe, best you can, is get Social Security. I wanted to work, again, recovery model. I wanted to work in this field. So I had those hope holders, those people like Milestone Center, other agencies. And so that's my favorite part, being able to say, hey, I know what that's like, and sharing those experiences, strength and hope. And again, the collaboration, not only with the people that we support, but those wonderful folks that I'm really proud to work with at Milestone Centers and the Partners for Quality family of agencies.
Well, Saya Krebs-Brandfass, I really appreciate your story and you being with us on the program today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
That closes another edition of Closer Look. Again, if you missed any of the contact information for Milestone Centers, you can reach out to us here via email at closerlook@klove.com. Again, that's closerlook@klove.com. And we'll make sure that we get that information on to you. Thanks again for listening to Closer Look. I'm Ron Turner.
This has been K-Love Closer Look. Find us online at klove.com.